No one could imagine that the two chambers housing the senators and representatives could become concentration camps with limited facilities, sleeping accommodations, and lack of nourishments. But this was an experience to be endured, for the purpose of educating the uneducated in the matter of survival. People around the world live in less healthy accommodations than a freshly cleaned and carpeted chamber. Take away alligators, lions, swamps, street corners with buses, and intolerant witnesses and haters striving to push you further into an abyss, not for comfort, but rather because no one wants you. Walking from one refugee camp to another, reaching a border with another country, but you don't have a visa. Your life is only significant to those with tax shelters, which give you and your family, your community, enough food and shelter to cover their tax liability. A newspaper, a radio, might champion your suffering, but it is not because they give a damn about you, but rather because it is a ratings game. Your child dying in your arms will usher in a 38% claim of viewers towards their network or the World Wide Web. The prestige, though, behind the whole matter ends up in the hands of the political elite, because they can either tackle worldwide suffering or care for the disadvantaged on every street corner in America. Neither, though, to a significant degree, because without the poor, how can the rich politician continue to be rich? So is it now an American ideal to grow up to become a member of the ruling class to help the suffering in the world, or to just find more ways to retain their wealth? The decision, though, has been taken out of their hands, because at the beginning of this occurrence and continuing on, these politicians no longer can make a decision about anyone else's welfare, because their own lives are at stake. And they are not political prisoners being held because of their political views, but rather their lacking of basic humanity. Political prisoners care. These politicians don't. The two large, majestically adorned chambers no longer smelled of pride or even contemptuous feelings of superiority and judgment over their fellow man, but rather simply unequivocal despair. The 500 plus, 435 representatives, and 100 senators have to exist in confined quarters, not having to create a bill to send military or political advisors to another country to negotiate for other hostages' welfare, and in the event the hostages were killed, demanding sanctions against those involved, not having to hold their heads up high while they accuse their political counterparts across the aisle of failing to come to the aid quick enough to make a difference, not having to make time to get photo shoots with the aggrieved family, pictures of the aid worker in her high school cheerleading outfit, or the trophy the young man won for his scholastic achievements. Terrorism won again over a proud America. These buffoons, though, assigned to the earth's greatest treasure trove to manage our world affairs, cannot even imagine that the words inept and responsible can be used in the same sentence to describe the same senator or representative, man or woman, and be truthful. And the sentence can be applied 500 plus times. But the silence of the captives is nothing short of tragic. because these are the pillars of our communities who like to take other people's lives in their hands, but cannot understand why suddenly it's their own lives that are in jeopardy. The morose continues, what could I have done differently? But to a person, after mentally viewing their efforts, the answer does not come to them. They look at each other as they are lying back in their chairs, some sitting on the carpets, while others lean against a wall, wondering who among them has it more comfortable. There is movement, though, a point of order, as select members of each chamber makes it to their feet. The gloom doesn't dissipate, but curiosity is now thriving as some representatives and senators become witnesses to a bizarre behavior that has taken place. Is this the Helsinki syndrome, where the captives soon establish control of their own conduct? The mystification of the scene intensifies as Paul Ryan places his "this isn't happening to me" face in a briefcase, while removing his false face that shows bravado. He is good at pulling this face out when he knows he has nothing to lose. And this isn't hard, keeping these faces stored in his briefcase, because there's nothing else in the binder. He is the man of limited intelligence and only knows what everyone else tells him to do, and usually that is no. The wannabe leader straightens his tie as he walks in a stoic manner over to other Tea Party types that are also straightening their clothes. Unfortunately, the few witnesses not affected cannot imagine why, because they are still stuck in a room with no exit in sight. And soon the groupings start to take shape. The Tea Parties, the Black Caucuses, LGBT, the fundamentalists, the libertarians, the northern haters, the southern haters, and on, until most members have picked a side. But even the sides picked were regimented, because everyone could not participate. Only the zealots needed to step forward, because the term compromise is not in their vocabulary. Some members of each group even started crying because they were deemed lacking and left out. Unfortunately, at no time was the distress of a fellow member even considered, because compassion has been lost to Congress for a lot of years. The small groups then became lines, with the members' shirts and blouses so close to another line that it appeared that the Tea Party was physically merging with the Black Caucus. But there was no effort on any member's part to pull away. And the marching soon began. 3 lines to a column, with another column of 3 lines following the first, and so on. But where were they going with the doors sealed shut? The witnesses watched as hundreds of their fellow members started their trek towards the solid barrier, and they could only imagine the conclusion as the first lines crashed into the solid structure and the second lines crashed into them. But all were surprised as a Black Caucus member held open the right side door of the exit and a Tea Party type held open the left side. Faces could be observed in the hall of the military looking back as each line proceeded through these doors that had been locked for days. No one is moving on the part of the security and military to keep these doors open, because the looks on the members' faces clearly express a view that anyone interfering in their movement will be trampled down. The Senate members are also performing in the same manner, and when the 2 groupings suddenly exit from the different chambers, the select groups of ideology search out each other and merge, creating a larger group to continue on their journey. Hate and ignorance is on the move.